Ryan, thank you so much for being on the show with me today. Tell us a little bit about yourself.
My career started pretty normal. I got out of high school, joined the military, joined the Marines. My first deployment was in 2006. So that was a time during the troop surge. So you routinely had units doing missions they really weren't trained for initially, and they kind of just had to figure it out as they went along. So I had the opportunity to work with some counterintelligence folks on the borders, and that really opened my eyes to the other side of the house in terms of operations and how they work with intelligence. And from there, I got out. I followed the path of least resistance, went into law enforcement. I started in the jails, which was a very eye-opening experience.
Well, I bet
From
so.
there, yeah, yeah, I think it's a great tool for law enforcement officers to do some time there because you really learn how to navigate encounters with individuals, and it's just a microcosm of what you find on the outside. It's a very unique experience. From there, I went on to a full-time special operations unit, so I got to work with a lot of different federal and state level agencies, and it was a very good career. Had a great team, and then I got the nod to hop on some government security contracts, and that's where I went after that. Did some work in Kabul as a sniper or DDM, and from there, I realized the gap in the industry, and I decided to try and fill it, and that's where I started Sparrow Risk Group.
Okay. Very good. So, with Sparrow Risk Group, is this how you kind of got into the protection field that you kind of find yourself today?
Yes, it started with the contracting overseas. So that was a protective security contract. So you go through a rather intensive pipeline of learning the ins and outs of protective security for diplomats overseas. And from there, I realized that there was really a gap in the soft skills within the
Mm.
industry because a lot of times when you think of security, you think of a goon with a gun, right?
Yeah. Right.
So I realized there was a lot of other skills that were, in my opinion, even more important when providing security to someone. And that is things like detecting devices or hidden cameras or hidden audio devices in a client's room, especially if they're high profile. And also, things like covert entry and being able to assess a physical structure and immediately identify weak points and how to exploit them from the offensive side and how to defend against them from the defensive side.
Very cool. Yeah, that all of that is fascinating to me. So I'm excited to be able to sit down and talk with you today. So what I wanted to cover today was kind of what you talked about just a second ago is how, we on family vacation can go and detect, hidden cameras in either a hotel or vacation home. But before we kind of get into the technical stuff, like how we always hear these like horror stories on the news about, oh, somebody found this hidden camera in a bathroom, that sort of thing. Is this a really big issue? Is this something that the average family really needs to be worried about?
Oh, absolutely. And, you can do a simple Google search. I advise everybody at home to do this. You can just Google hidden camera in public restroom, and you would be astonished of the
Mm,
companies that come up. These are big companies that everybody knows about. And it's at no fault of the company. I just want to, kind of
right,
say
right.
that because they can't control what happens. It's a transient space. People go in, they go out. It's the normal run of the mill day. But now there are companies who are taking an offensive approach and they are having scans done routinely because it is such a big problem. And unfortunately, there is a major market for this on the internet and completely open source. And they're
Yeah,
typically marketed as nanny cams. So if you market it as a spy camera, there's a good chance that a lot of people won't pick you up because it's
right.
basically that's nefarious in nature. Just the word spy makes people feel weird. And as a point of fact, Airbnb is changing their global, camera policies for internal cameras. It used to be that they would allow you to have them in common areas and you just had to disclose them on the listing. But as of April 30th, I believe it is, they are changing that where no interior cameras are allowed in Airbnbs. So
Wow,
it's
okay.
being done quietly, but what caused that to happen? You have to
Mhm.
critically think what made them change their entire policy. And I don't know the answer to that. Just think for yourself.
Right, yeah. And I'll say that, usually if there's a policy change, it's because there was a lawsuit and there's something that triggered that lawsuit. So what would that have been? Yeah,
Right. It's
exactly.
not cheap to change a policy for a company of that size. And that is a
Exactly.
massive undertaking. And that legal team is going to charge good money to make sure that everything is on the up and up. So, I always tell people, peel back the layers a bit, do your own research, and come to your own conclusions.
Yep, absolutely. Yeah, that critical thinking there is very, very, very important. Even when going on vacation, I hate to say it,
Mhm.
you can't check your brain out like that. All right, so
Right.
you kind of touched on this stuff a second ago, but what are these cameras meant to get? Because I know that there's probably, and we'll take the case of Airbnb, where the homeowners are like, I just want to make sure that nobody's brought a motorcycle into my house and is rebuilding an engine in it. But
Mhm.
there's a dark side to these cameras too, right?
Absolutely. So you got to think, from the Sparrow Risk Group side of the house. So I do have the security and intelligence firm. Uh, we do a risk assessment, right? Every client that comes through the door, what are your risks? For the average person, I wouldn't say that information or corporate espionage is a really big risk.
Sure.
However, if think about what you're doing, make that decision yourself. Are you involved in politics, even at the lower levels? Are you a high risk asset because you're involved in a major business merger? All these things need to go into it. So you'd be at a higher risk for these, countermeasures or the need for the countermeasures for the technical surveillance. But for the average Joe, the average family, it's more, for lack of a better term, it's more creeps just wanting to catch people in compromising situations where there's an reasonable expectation of privacy. Bathrooms, bedrooms, beds specifically, known changing areas. So that's just them being opportunistic and getting footage that is doing something in their mind. So, it really is a complicated and very vast reasoning behind why it happens. But the truth of the matter is, my college professor mentioned something when it comes to criminals, every crime they are actually caught for and prosecuted, they've gotten away with 100. So for
Mm.
every one device that we see on the news, there's hundreds, if not thousands, that went unnoticed. So I hope that what we talk about here today will give people the tools to make their own decisions to better protect their family and their privacy on the move.
Yeah, absolutely, and you're right about that. When you see one news story, it means that there's a whole lot more out there that you haven't seen, and gosh,
Mhm.
especially from the law enforcement side. So, yeah, that's a really that's a really good point to make there, Ryan. So, okay, so I am going to be checking into a vacation space, whether it's a hotel room or an Airbnb. What is my first step in checking for a hidden camera?
Well, first and foremost, you have to look at the space. If you've been in one hotel room, you've been in them all, right? We're going to get into the human behavior side of things for a second. Uh, you can go to any hotel in North America and the rooms pretty much look the same, right? We've seen this. There's pictures on the wall that are generic pictures.
Yep.
There's a clock. There's a television. There's probably a Bible in the desk drawer, and that's it. Maybe a notepad. So when you walk into a hotel room, anything abnormal or an anomaly will stick out right away. You're going to go, well, that's weird, and you're going to notice it. And you may act on it, but you just kind of keep it back here. With an Airbnb, it's much more difficult. There's more noise. You don't know what normal is. You don't have a baseline. So you go into an Airbnb, you go, this is nice. But unfortunately, with Airbnbs, the hiding places are exponentially more numerous than, in a hotel. Because when you're thinking about how these are hidden, you got to think of a few different points. Number one, it needs power, right? So
Hmm.
if it's running off the power of another device, then it could be hidden as another device, either purpose built or running parasitically using that power. Otherwise, you would need a battery, a 9 volt, a watch battery. That's kind of big to hide, right? Can't hide that behind a picture, really.
Right.
Or, the storage or transmission. If it has an antenna, they can be small, but if it has internal storage, now you're talking it's a little bigger. So you need to go into, we'll start with hotel rooms. When you walk in, just take a look around. Just leave your bags by the door and start looking around and prioritize the areas where you think they would want to see. I mentioned bed areas earlier, areas where people might change, bathrooms. So go to those areas and start looking around. Immediately, I say, hey, what has power that is facing this direction?
Mm.
Sprinkler, uh, you have smoke detectors, which we'll talk about here in a second.
Yep.
You have even outlets, not the covers, the outlets themselves. They will replace the outlets, and inside of the ground hole will be a small camera because it has power running to it. So
Yep.
you start with the power, and then you start thinking of the concealability, where it can go. When you're talking about an Airbnb, it's much more complicated because there are so many places. It's somebody's home. So from there, same thing, prioritize the areas where you're going to be changing and maybe, tell your family, especially if you have little kids, hey, you get changed in the room. Hey, you get changed in here because you can secure that area as best you can and be moderately confident that we're good in here. Another really good way to kind of start your search is to use some type of Wi-Fi detection program. Like Fing is a great one. I love
Mhm.
Fing. You log on, you connect to the Wi-Fi, and just see what's on there. You'll see Ring doorbell camera. Some may not be labeled, but if you see one popping up and it's all Chinese writing, it's a pretty big indicator that that's weird. Doesn't mean
Yep.
it's nefarious, but it means you should start trying to find where that is, because a lot of these devices, and I have a few here today to show, they do come up on Fing in all Chinese writing. So that is one thing I've noticed for some of the purpose built devices that you'll find on, certain popular sales pages, they will come
Right.
up with that. Yeah. So definitely Fing is a great one. And then another really good one is infrared. So infrared will give you an immediate kind of idea of where something might be drawing more power than it should. And it's as small as this. And this is sourceable on Amazon. It connects to your phone and you can, it's on my Amazon store. But what you do is you go to all these powered devices, and I'll demonstrate it here with the smoke detectors. You'll notice right away that it is burning hot in a specific space because of the camera and the processor.
Yeah, and that's a really good point to make. I like Fing, that's one of the
Right.
things that I've used for a long time, and you're right about spotting all Chinese characters because a lot of these things are just cheap, you know, almo I mean, you can go and buy them in legitimate stores, but sometimes these
Mhm.
are things that fall off the back of a truck, and so it's not
Right.
gonna have the same level of finesse as, like, something that is made by, Anchor or DJI or something to that effect. So yeah, looking for the hey, this is different, this is unusual. That's a really good point. So, do you kind of I would like to see your demonstration here since you're talking
Sure.
about using the infrared and all that. Thank you so
Yeah.
much for setting this up back here. Kind of walk us through what you're doing.
Sure. So we talked about initially, so we'll skip the process of Thing because I know these are connected to my network. So that's gonna be something that's gonna be obvious. But what I'm gonna do right now is I'm gonna connect the infrared sensor. And it's really simple. There's a lot of different ones on the internet. Amazon has a lot of great ones. FLIR has some.
Mhm.
And it's one of those buy once, cry once type scenarios where it is a little pricey, but once you buy it, there's so many applications for it. I mean, you can use it to find leaks in your home. I mean, it really does have a lot of different applications that will be useful to you. So I'm going to connect this. I'm going to get this going. I'm hoping we can see it with the screen. So when you have a device that is either parasitically powered or a device that like a camera that's been added to something, you'll notice that you'll have the general heat of the object, and then you'll see it kind of ping up on exactly where the camera is. And I've let this run for a little bit, so it should be working. And I'm going to play
Right.
around with this for a second. Let's
And for
see.
those of you who are just listening to this, what Ryan has done is he has taken just a camera and stuck and plugged it into the charging port on his iPhone, and is now using that as an external camera to see what's going on. And it's fantastic what he's showing us here.
All
Yeah, I can
right.
see this like glowing orb behind you. Is that it?
Yes. So you see how the bottom one is glowing and the top one is not? So you
Yep.
have the top one here
Uh huh.
and you have this here. So that top one is a regular smoke detector. That bottom one, that has the camera. So you can see how bright that is. And
Yeah.
right here is where the camera is. So this is a great tool to just scan your room as you walk in. And you can take that and you can say, well, that's hotter than everything else. Why is that? It doesn't necessarily mean that it is a camera. So don't start, running for the hills there. But just that means take a second look at it. That means verify what you're thinking. And if you look closely, this is where the camera is right in here. So if you were to just go up close to it, you're going to see it. Done deal. Another way, and there are very expensive devices, right? So something like this, This is close to, I don't know, $700. This isn't crazy expensive, but this is getting up there in terms
Right.
of functionality and what it can detect, and it can demodulate and things like that. But we don't need to get that far in the weeds. This is for the average person traveling, right?
Right. This
If
is yeah, for like
someone
me.
just, right. And with something like this, it's important to note, if you go anywhere international, this is going to get you in trouble, right? If you're
Very
going
that's
through
a good point.
customs,
That's a good
yeah,
point. Yeah, that
you
is
do
gonna
not
get you
want
in
to show
trouble
up. Yeah. So, but something
with
like
that.
this, there's no words on here. It just has an on and off switch. So it's completely innocuous. You can toss it in your bag, in your pocket. No one's going to look at it. And by the way, I've tested this theory. I've brought
Uh-huh.
it through multiple places just to see if they'd take it. And no one has even looked at it. So you have field tests there, but it's going to be hard to hear. But if you notice, you see the lights on here,
Yeah.
and that's the signal strength. So it's got all the way up here, up top would mean that you're getting a signal. So if you watch, if I go close to here, nothing changes because this is the regular one.
Mhm.
Nothing here. But if I go to here, there it is. You see it jump, goes
I
away.
see it jump and I hear it making the noise, yes.
Yep. So this device, even though it's maybe $30 on the internet, this RF detector will do its job. Will it tell you what it actually is? No, but we don't need to know all that. You just need to know, hey, there's something going on over here. Let me take another look. Let me use my white light and let me take a look. Now, another point that I want to make is a lot of times you'll have these red lenses, and they
Mhm.
tell you to use these to detect lenses. There's a reason I don't really use these. And that is
Okay.
because if you think about what it's actually doing, when you turn this on, it's going to shoot out bursts of light. So as it shoots out bursts of light, that's going to supposed to make it tell you to turn off all the lights and just scan your room and you'll see it bounce back. Well, are lenses flat?
No, they are
Not
not.
really. Right. So being that it's curved, you have to be at the exact right angle to get that light to reflect back to you. When I was in training, there were plenty of times where I would try and use this because we would use the expensive machines all the way down to these cheap ones so you can see that they do work. And I missed so many devices in training using this only, the lens detector, that I realized I don't like it. I can just go with a white light and they all have a white light on them. So if you use the white light, then you just get up close and look. Look in the nooks and crannies. The camera lenses can be so incredibly small they can fit into a keyhole. Like I said, the ground hole on an outlet.
Yeah.
So, you have to think, how small is this going to be? And you got to get up close. It takes 15 minutes to get into your hotel room and prioritize some things, do a quick infrared scan, run around with this thing, go against everything with power, things that stand out to you. And then you have at least a much higher level of comfort that you and your family are secure. And so is your privacy.
Right. And that's, kind of what I wanted to talk to you about, seeing all this and going through it. I think this is very cool. This is something that I would definitely do when I walk into a hotel room. But for somebody who's like, "Man, Ryan, this is a whole lot of work here. Is it really worth it?" What happens if we don't do this and there actually is a camera there? What kind of consequences are we looking at?
Well, so that goes into it's kind of a multi-phase question and answer. So let's say, for instance, it's just your run-of-the-mill family. You're just getting a family vacation, and somebody planted a device. Now, where did they plant it? If it's in a hotel room or Airbnb, it may not even be transmitting. They may be going back and retrieving the storage, and from
Mm,
there, they can. So that's going to create another issue. If it's not actively transmitting, this will not work as well. So if they're going to come
gotcha.
back and get it, so that's where the prioritization of devices where things could be hidden and are powered becomes so important because if it's not actively transmitting, that creates a level of complexity, still workable, but and also the infrared that'll pick that up as well because it's powered. So you have the power which is creating the infrared bloom, the temperature rise, and then you have the signals that it's emitting. Could be Wi-Fi, could be Bluetooth, low emission. If it's BLE, they have to be close. So if it's
Mhm.
Bluetooth low emission, then that means they're in the parking lot or in a room nearby. Now, these small
Okay.
detectors won't differentiate between what's what, but you don't really need it. If this starts beeping at an area where, it's not supposed to, that means take a look. That means try unplugging the device. Does it still beep? Well, if it doesn't beep, then if you unplugged it, then that means, hey, that was the source of this. Now you really got to check. And in my on the website, we have a video on it, and it really goes deep into how to do it. You see me use this exact device and go around and identify devices that I myself hit, because they're not always going to be in plain sight. This clock, this has a hidden
Yeah.
camera in it,
Yeah. And you
right?
can't
And
see it.
this,
I can't see that. Yeah.
nope, nope. And it's actually right here. You'd have to shine a light. Actually, so we're going to use the white light right now.
Okay.
If you use the
Yep.
white light right
There it
there,
is. It looks
see
like
it?
your camera on your phone. It's exactly what it
Right,
looks like. Yep.
right. But the glass kind of makes it mirrored, so you won't actually
Mhm.
see it. So
Yep.
there it is. Now, if you use the lens detector on here and you were just at a 20-degree angle, there's a chance you might not get it because of the angle
Mm.
of the lens. It might not refract back. So, uh, that's why I always say use a white light, get close, and start checking the nooks and crannies. And, if you find something that's questionable, I carry around the little stick it notes for like signatures on a document.
Mhm.
The little tabs.
Yeah, yeah, like the little tiny, Post-it notes.
Right, right.
Yeah,
Post-it notes. Just stick one on something that you think is questionable. Just go through, stick, 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 and then go back and take a look and verify whether or not there is something there.
very cool. Alright, so here's my next question for you. Let's say I go through my Airbnb and I do find a camera. What do I do with it? What do I do?
Well, there's two trains of thought here. And, as former law enforcement, there is the train of thought, hey, you got to preserve the scene, preserve the crime scene. Well, not the crime scene, but it is a scene, right? They got to come
Sure.
do their investigation. They have to come verify that what you're saying is true. However, if you asked me the likelihood that a local law enforcement officer will come and be able to track where this is coming from, I'd say you have a better chance of winning the Powerball. And that's not saying anything against law enforcement. In fact, I think law enforcement is presented with so many problems that
Oh, yeah.
I'm just in awe by those men and women every day, because they deal with everything from a domestic to, hey, I think there's a GPS tracker in my car, to, hey, I found a hidden camera in my Airbnb. And that could be in one shift. And
Yeah.
they're not getting the training on this in their, at least that I know of. I know New Jersey isn't. They're not getting the training on this, but they do get calls about it all the time. So all they can really do is document it and, go from there. At best, if they were to maybe get the help of some federal agency or maybe even a prosecutor's office with a cybersecurity division, even if they were to be able to track the IP, which is again highly unlikely. I deal with some major cyber hacks in this area and outside the country, and there's really nothing that happens.
Mm.
And they'll tell you right out, we can't do anything about it. There's really yeah, it's theft by deception technically. If you're going into the state criminal statutes, but how are they going to prosecute? How are they going to prove it? If they track the IP, they're not sending people to Jakarta because that's where it came
Yeah.
back to.
Right.
If they're running a VPN, again, good luck. If they use an email address that they've never used before, good luck. And if it's outside the country, they're not, extraditing someone for putting a hidden camera in a hotel room. So it's just, it's something that you have to basically, you find the device. Me personally, from a personal protection and privacy standpoint, I'm going to unplug it, put it somewhere, call the police. But before I do that, I'm going to record it, make sure it's timestamped, make sure it's geotagged, so it can be used in evidence should there be, a court case. But I'm telling you right now, there's probably not going to be. So I prioritize stopping the surveillance immediately. That's really what we're doing here. Most people aren't in law enforcement. Continuity of evidence and securing of a potential crime scene should not be your first priority. First priority is protecting your family, protecting your privacy. So I'm going to unplug it and put it in a drawer. I'm going to notify law enforcement, notify the front desk, and that's it. I'm not staying there. I'm immediately getting out of there because it's no longer a permissive environment. It's now non-permissive, in my opinion. So if I recommend that you record it, you make sure that you record the whole space so they can see, hey, this is actually where it is. It is powered, and then unplug it, place it somewhere where it can't record you anymore, and then report it to local law enforcement, get a police report and a CC number, and move on. Find another place to stay. Ask for a
Got
refund.
it. Yeah, and that's all great advice. I especially like, making sure that you're documenting it, make sure everything has a time step on it, all that. as you found it, how you found it, that sort of thing. I think that's
Mhm.
very important. So besides, finding, a camera in my hotel room, are there any other security measures that I can take to protect the room that I'm staying in?
Yeah, really, there's some really interesting ones. So, number one, we mentioned Fing earlier. I think Fing is a really good tool that people should use to just check any network that they're going to connect to. But let's take that a step further. A travel router is a great
Mhm.
idea. I travel
Mhm.
with them. I know I've heard you speak about them before. They're great. They really are a way to add a layer of protection to your privacy, and that's really what we're protecting here in this conversation. Additionally, there's an interesting app called the Alfred Camera app.
Yep.
So you've heard of it? Okay, great.
Oh, yeah.
So this app is phenomenal. It's actually pretty robust for a free app, and they have a small price you could pay, which I recommend. I mean, if you're
Yes,
going to pay
yes.
$10 for the year, just do it because it's your safety, right? So what you can do is you can take any old cell phone, or you can go to Walmart and buy a burner for 30-40 bucks, as long as it's a smartphone, and then you're able to actually connect. You turn your phone into a security camera. Is what you do.
Mhm.
And then what you do is you don't need to carry it because you're not using it for any other purpose but this. You just hook it up to a charger, prop it up somewhere, whether it's on a tripod or use a cup, something, and just put it facing your door. That way, when you're gone, if somebody does enter your room, I always put do not disturb signs on my room.
Mhm.
And I will even purposefully uh when you close the door in a hurry and your do not disturb sign gets caught in the door.
Yeah.
Okay. Do that on purpose. Here's why. If somebody does go in, they're not going to pick that up. Most people are not going to realize and they're not going to think it's intentional. But you knew it was intentional. So if you go back to your hotel room and that's now hanging freely and you had a do not disturb sign, that maid shouldn't have went in.
Mhm.
So now you know somebody's been in the room. But if you have the camera, now you have confirmation. You can even talk through the camera. What are you doing? Get out of my bag. I'm
Mhm.
calling the police. So the Alfred Camera app is something we use in security all the time because if you carry around like a purpose-built camera, I used to have a kit with a travel router and a camera. But again, if you're going to certain countries, they don't like that. They're going to go, "What's this for?" They're going to start questioning you.
Sure.
So if you have an extra cell phone, no one's going to ask a question. Everybody's got two cell phones these days. So just bring
Mhm.
your cell phone and that is just your camera. So when you leave for the day, throw that phone up. And then also, this is another thing I recommend for travelers. This is a simple door alarm from GE. I think a pack of four costs $20.
Mhm.
And I bring these everywhere I go. I, recommend to my girlfriend, please just promise me you'll put this up in your hotel room because it creates a, a security system and a general deterrent with a loud audible siren that you can set when you leave your hotel room. So if somebody's going to go in your hotel room to snoop around, if they open the door and this thing goes off and it's loud, uh, they're gonna leave, okay? And they're not gonna come back. I
Right.
that's 95% sure that they're gonna take off because now they know they're painted.
Right. So, okay, so that man, you said 2 great things here, so I have 2
Mhm,
questions for you real quick.
mhm.
Talk to me about the difference between using a VPN and a travel router. What's the advantage of the travel router there?
Well, the travel router kind of, adds another layer to when you connect to the hotel Wi-Fi. I inherently don't trust public Wi-Fi systems, and they
Oh,
may
yeah.
say, "Hey, this is secure." Got it. I'm still gonna treat it as if it's not. The travel router allows you to, you'll still have to connect to the internet, but you're gonna go through the router, and that's gonna kinda give you a layer of protection, but then I always run a VPN as well. I mean, and there's a lot of good options out there. You got Proton, Open, there's some companies that have some really, really, robust, purpose-driven VPNs for certain areas, and you should always be running a VPN. You really should. Is it gonna protect you wholeheartedly? No, it's not gonna protect you fully, but it's gonna add layers and make it much more difficult. So once somebody has your IP, then they can go in and snoop around. And there's something called war driving, which is
Mhm.
another problem people have they don't know about, is people will just go around and gain access to your network and just start snooping around without you knowing. That's why Fing, again, if Fing is running, you can say, "Hey, what's that connected to my network right now?" So I always
Mhm.
use Fing when I'm traveling just to make sure there's nothing new that pops up. I'm like, "Hey, that wasn't there before."
Mhm.
But I really recommend the VPN is just paramount, and there's a lot of good ones out there. I'm not sponsored by any,
Right.
Proton. It's good. I've used it.
Mhm.
OpenVPN, another very good one. Just take these small steps to increase your privacy and protection, and then you can just sleep better at night. It's peace of mind. That's what we're paying for, and that's what we're doing today. Is trying to give them a taste of what's possible and some non-invasive ways that they can protect their privacy so that they're not going into paranoid territory. They're just prepared. There's a
Yeah.
fine line between the two.
Oh,
And
yeah.
I
Yeah.
believe I'm just prepared. Some people may say I'm paranoid, but I'm
Well, those
prepared. I also know
right.
a lot of stuff.
Yeah, right. You've had a lot of experience. So if you were going through these things, there's a reason. All right. So
Right.
the second question that I wanted to ask you is when you brought up the alarm that, when that goes off, somebody's going to run, they're not going to come back. While we don't know every single specific scenario, generally speaking, like the people who put these cameras up, the people who are going to come into the room, they don't necessarily want the confrontation, right? They just either want the stuff, they want the footage, that sort of thing, right?
Hmm. Yeah. Let's face it, bad guys hate getting caught. So if
Right.
they know they're doing something illegal, and I should point this out, there are much less laws on the books for video surveillance than there is for audio. For
Hmm.
instance, you ever call your uh, I don't know, pick your phone company. Hey, well, this call is being recorded for quality and insurance purposes.
Sure.
Well, either A, you hit one acknowledging this is okay because they don't know if you're in a single party consent state or a dual party consent state. Or if you will say, if you don't want to do this, opt out by pressing two. So with video surveillance, there is a reasonable expectation of privacy in areas that you might derobe, areas that you will shower, areas that you might, uh, you know, where you sleep. And these areas, I don't care what state you're in, if you put cameras in these areas surreptitiously or covertly, it is a crime. And if you
Mm.
get adults, rather say human beings, if you get adults, taking off their clothes, it doesn't even have to be naked. If they just strip down to their undergarments, crime. Now you have the added, complexity and the added seriousness if there's a child. If there's a
Right.
minor who is going to go take a bath and they're running around and they catch that footage, now it's a crime. And that will get more of an effort, in my opinion, out of law enforcement because now that's when you're involving children. Now
Mhm.
that gets to federal territory if they escalate it high enough. So that's no joke. And then, you know, that's one of the main things I'm trying to combat against is there's a lot of issues going around with human trafficking, things like that. And this is just a gateway to things, right? Having a camera because you also don't know, are they just getting the footage to
Mhm.
gratify themselves in some way, shape, or form? Or are they surveilling you to find out when they come and take you?
Right.
So
Right.
I know I'm going down the rabbit hole, but as a security professional, I have to go down these rabbit holes in my
Yeah.
head and protect the clients against it. So that could be
Absolutely.
more serious than just getting footage of you taking a shower.
Right. And I think that also speaks to people who do have Airbnbs who are putting up cameras legitimately for security purposes. There's things
Mhm.
that you need to understand that you could get yourself in trouble,
Right,
when you don't intend to. Cool.
right,
So,
right.
Ryan, as we wrap up here, I know you have a lot of experience, and so there's a lot of stories you can tell, and many that you
Mhm.
can't. So, is there a story from your professional experience that you could share with us that involves detecting a spy camera?
Yeah. So a lot of this work comes from divorce attorneys. I'm sure that's no
Mm,
surprise.
right.
And it's very prevalent in high profile divorces, especially with a lot of money on the line, right? If you can prove infidelity, then it might give you a court case depending on where you are and the prenups that are in place. But there was a case in California where it was a relatively high profile divorce. And the husband believed that his wife had planted devices throughout his home. And the reason why, and this is where the awareness part comes into play. He had realized that her lawyer had mentioned something that he had only discussed inside of his vehicle and only with
Mm,
his attorney. So when that came out in court documents, luckily he had the frame of mind to go, hold on a second. I remember where I was when I said that. And there was nobody by me and I was talking to my attorney. So I have attorney client privilege. So that kind of raised his antenna, and that's where I got the phone call. So I went in and and this is actually good because it actually shows the shortcomings of infrared as well. It's a very good tool, but what you'll find is reflective surfaces like glass and mirrors, they will actually reflect back the heat. So you'll
Mhm.
see, you won't actually see through it. You won't burn through it. You'll just get reflected heat. So it kind of creates a wall almost. And I had scanned it through infrared. Nothing popped out in that area. What it happened to be was like a tree like this, but it was in a clear glass vase, for lack of a better term. It was big. It was a couple feet high, and it was filled with black decorative stone. So the stone had a sheen to it, kind of like I don't know. I'm a guy. The gravel you'd find in a fish
Right.
tank, right?
A fish tank,
I'm
yeah, fish tank rocks. Got it.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. So I'm sure for the women watching are like, he's an idiot. But so that's what it was. And what it did is it created this unique opportunity to hide the camera because the camera has a sheen to it as well. So all you have is these rocks reflecting light, and they're the same color as the camera. And I happened
Okay.
to pick it up with actually with this device. So this device picked it up. This is a directional antenna. So I was able to, I kind of got a beep near it, and I turn around. Well, that's weird. And then I turned it on and started kind of waving it around, and it zeroed me in. And sure enough, halfway in, there was a camera hidden. So that took some work. They had to empty the
Yeah.
rocks. They had to like place it because as you add the rocks, it's going to move the camera. So that was a determined placement. And we wound up finding four other ones throughout the house in strategic areas, and also a tracking device in the car. And that's the other important. I'd like to make a note that two things, if I could.
Sure.
These devices, they're advertised as being able to detect GPS devices, but
Mhm.
technically that's true. It's not false, but let me explain why it doesn't really do a great job. So if I were to have this device, I have a tracking device and I test everything I do. I set up labs like this so I can see what the pluses and minuses, what their limitations are. So I had a tracking device and it was updating every 15 seconds. Well, with GPS, it doesn't constantly transmit like Wi-Fi or even
Mhm.
Bluetooth. It just shoots out a burst of information depending on how long they have it set for. 15 seconds, 30 seconds, a minute, 5 minutes. So you're only going to get a very, very short burst. So this device, even if it was sitting on the GPS tracker, it would nothing, 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 beep, and then nothing, nothing for 30 more seconds. Beep. So I'm not an inherently lucky guy. I don't trust me getting lucky and turning it on and having it, shoot the signal out. So with GPS devices, if that gets into the nitty gritty of it, you got to get on your hands and
Mhm.
knees and search everything. Cause, uh, you know, where have, uh, where have I put them? Behind your license plate. Whoever looks behind your
Mhm.
license plate,
Right.
nobody.
Right. Nobody
And they're
does.
thin and they're magnetic. So you unscrew the license plate a bit, put it on there, screw it back in. Nobody, I guarantee you, nobody's ever going to look. And that's where you find a
Goodness.
lot of them. Yep.
Yeah.
They won't shake
Wow.
off. Yep. Yep. And they make purpose built ones now that are not much thicker than a credit card. You just slap it right
Mhm.
under there.
Yeah.
So yeah, that's
Man.
also is something you got to look for. Yeah.
All right. Well, I'm gonna go check my license plates now.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I do. I do.
Yeah. I don't blame you. I don't blame you, man.
You know,
Well, cool. Well, gosh, Ryan, I could probably talk to you all day here. And I've really appreciated this. I learned a lot from you. So as we wrap up, I want you to tell me a little bit more about your new venture here, Dads for Defense. Where
Mhm.
can people find out more about that and what you're doing?
Yeah. So Dads for Defense really was something, I got the idea when I was in Italy. I was in Italy last year, and a very good friend of mine, he was a client, turned into a friend, and he made a comment. We're on the roof playing chess. It was just scenic. I mean, you're overlooking the city in Florence, and it was beautiful. And he made a comment asking if somebody was part of our tribe. And I said, "Can you elaborate for a second?" And he said, "Yeah, part of our tribe, like one of us, cares about what we care for, the same values. Is dedicated to his family. Is it understands that a man should believe that there's something more than just him. He's not the center of the universe. We have a duty to protect our family and to protect and enrich our communities." And I think like somewhere along the way, we lost that a little bit, right? We're
Mhm.
shopping at, you know, the mom and pop shops are going the way of the dodo. You know, there's not a whole lot of community engagement in some areas of the country. So I believe it starts there. And what Dads for Defense is a community built on shared values, and it gives everyone, number one, an outlet to learn things, to learn those essential life skills. I always say your career or life path should not dictate whether or not you have the skills to protect what's yours. So if you're an accountant or if you're a plumber, maybe you didn't go into my line of work, so you wouldn't have some of these soft skills that I have, but it doesn't mean you can't learn. And it doesn't mean you have to be an expert. You can go on and you can watch a 5-minute video on this stuff. And I actually go around the room and I explain it. And then with every video, there's a corresponding quiz. So you're getting a certificate for each course you complete. So you actually get an awareness level course and then you earn points. So it creates some healthy competition, which as men, I think is important. We should be
Right.
competing against each other and against ourselves every single day. So you can go on, you can get some certifications, you can get some knowledge. And the real power behind Dads for Defense is the network. And that's what really made it possible. These amazing companies that are involved, Arcadia Cognerati, those are friends of ours. They're phenomenal. They're involved doing their human behavior thing. And it's just enough to give you the baseline knowledge. And then if you want more, go to those companies and learn more. It's giving you enough and you can do it from the comfort of your home. You don't have to worry about logistics with your kids' weekend softball games or football games. And you don't have to spend thousands of dollars in logistics and class training. You can sit on your couch after a long day of work and watch a 5-minute video, actually learn something and take the quiz and you get some points. And then every month we do a raffle for the top 10 on the leaderboard and you win something. Could be merch, could be a home assessment by me. And that's really where I differentiated myself when I started this journey into private security is I wanted to set myself apart. So I became that bridge from the operator to the technical type guy. So I was able to, in the field, fill a role of a technical asset and also as an operator. So I can just put a different hat on and get through most things, get through a door, bypass an intrusion detection alarm if we need to. And that led me down the path of really developing, not mastering. I don't ever call myself a master at anything, but I continuously learn and I continuously dive deeper into the world of these soft skills that I think every guy should at least know about. Every man
Mhm.
should at least know about what's going on. Something as simple as this. Just pay attention, change your lens a bit, and you'll be far safer for it. More importantly, your family will be.
Absolutely, man. I agree 100%. We have to look out for our family. I always say you don't need to outsource your safety to somebody else. Like it's on you.
Love that.
It's on you as an individual and it's on you as a parent and a spouse and all of that. So you pick up all of that as you go through life. So I think that's fantastic. Where can people find out more about you and what you're doing?
So that's easy. That's at dadsfordefense.com. We also have our Instagram page, Dads for Defense, and you'll see teasers for the videos that we have on the website, which would have the corresponding quizzes. And also, I took the liberty, I hope you don't mind, of creating a coupon code for your members. And that's Secure Dad, one word. Go on there, you get a discount on it. And because I love what you're doing. I've been a fan of your show for a while, and I think that the community is growing. I've noticed that over the past few years. There's more people coming out and just trying to impart some knowledge on the general public, and the people are listening. And I think that's the best reward for us. It's understanding that what we do today, what we talked about today, may very well save a life. It may keep someone out of a precarious situation. So I believe that we're making some headway here, and I really am excited about 2024 and beyond.
Absolutely, man. I appreciate that. Thank you for the discount code. I know my audience is going to appreciate that. But I appreciate you, man. Thank you for everything that you have talked about here today, all the stuff that you have shared, your expertise and all that. Man, I really do appreciate you. God bless you and your mission, man.
Absolutely, you as well. Thanks for having me.